First glance, this lazy boy seems weak. But he was actually extremely talented and incredibly powerful. He can easily kill a cursed dragon. He can even stop a powerful strike with just 2 fingers. Even standing before the Demon King, he was bored. Just look at his face as he breaks his way through mountains, groaning after the Demon King's powerful strike. He even wants to sleep at this time, but before I spoil all the fun, let's start the story. A man named Hermes was peacefully dozing when suddenly his sister appeared. The girl asks him if he did something wrong because Mimi, who seems to act as the butler, was looking for him. Hermes told her that he was assigned an annoying task, that's why he ran away. The sister exclaimed that he is the head of the Cano family, so he must take his duties seriously. At first, being the 4th son of the Cano family, he was never destined to become its head. But it was during a party where all 3 of his older brothers were present that a meteorite suddenly fell and, unfortunately, they all died. In the end, he simply dreamed of a quiet, lazy life, so he told his sister to take a day off at least once. The sister smirked mockingly. There was nothing special about that day, neither his birthday nor any anniversary. Sister pondered, so what is special about it? He interrupted her and said that today was the spring solstice. The sister seemed confused. He said that it was like the summer or winter solstice, the day of the year when temperature and humidity most strongly resemble spring. His sister did not believe it because such a thing simply does not happen. He got angry when she realized that he was constantly joking, saying that he himself arranged that spring solstice. But he stubbornly insists that it is truly the most spring-like day of the year. He crossed his arms and asked her to allow him to spend the afternoon peacefully. The girl could no longer endure it, and he sharply scolded Hermes, finally ordering him to seriously take up his duties. Hermes agreed but replied that he would do it tomorrow. Girl exhaled and decided to stay at Mimi's where he was. The girl leaves him, so Hermes snapped his fingers even before Mimi could find him. Later, Mimi came but was confused. Lady Sola said that Hermes was definitely here, but she herself could not find him. He placed his hand on the back of the chair and did not even notice that Hermes was actually nearby, invisible. I noticed Hermes' drinks were standing there completely untouched. But he was nowhere to be found, so he decided to leave. After Mimi left, Hermes snapped his fingers and became visible. Now he can finally enjoy his work dedicated to the solstice. He swears that he will never show his true strength. But already the next day Hermes was rushing to Mimi's. He stopped abruptly, but the old man sharply interrupted him, recalling yesterday's matter, and Hermes exclaimed excitedly for him to forget about it and ask for gold coins. He will use this money to buy a limited edition Ordia photo album. The sage said that she is the most beautiful woman in all history, born once every 10,000 years, and added that this is the first edition with serial number 0 and even with her autograph. The old man asked if he was asking for money for his hobby again. Hermes insisted passionately, this is not a hobby, Ordia is real life for him, and gave him exactly what was needed. He also managed to advise Hermes not to forget about yesterday's matter, but Hermes simply ignored him and left immediately. Hermes finally bought that photo album. He notices that he almost left fingerprints on it, so he whispers a spell and uses his magical gloves. He begins to open the book to look inside, but then suddenly Sola appears and he told her to stop. He was just at the most interesting part. But Sola understood what was going on, why he was so worried and still hadn't resolved yesterday's matter. Annoyed at her older brother, she instantly grabbed the photo album. She took the book and instead threw other papers at him. She threatened him that she would not return it until he solved the problem. Hermes was irritated. After all, it looked like homework. He suddenly realized if he did not do this homework, his photo album would be thrown into the trash. He decided to comply and quietly asked if all that was required of him was simply to solve this problem, and Sola agreed. The first thing he needed to do was find the enemy and discuss it with Mimi so they could prepare the troops. Sola had not even finished when suddenly Hermes jumped out. He was ready for anything, just to hold that photo book in his hands again. A few days later, Mimi was already saying one thing: the disappearance of the cursed dragon was confirmed. They confirmed the cleansing of the land from the curse, but our lazy one looked gloomy. Mimi added that he was defeated just 2 days after appearing, and the damage was very little. Therefore, several neighboring towns proposed to arrange a crowd of 10,000 supporters for him as a sign of gratitude. Each town sincerely expressed thanks on behalf of its citizens, and Hermes even broke into a sweat upon hearing this. He asked why they were even allowed to do this. If that monster was so strong, they should have warned. He dealt with it himself, and it seems he panics. Now that everyone knows how strong he was, his lazy life might be over. Mimi explained that they initially planned to assign guards to him, but did not expect Hermes to go alone. In the report, this was ultimately written: He also informed him that the king was extremely pleased and wanted to praise him. Hermes begged the old man to cancel it, but it was impossible. In his head, it seemed that his fame had risen again. Even without showing his true strength, he is the strongest. He strives to tame that power and disregard his own will to one day turn his home into a kingdom. It was him the story of a nobleman who did not want to raise his status. Sola asked the maid if she had seen her brother. The maid told her that Hermes was in his office, and it seems Hermes heard Sola's tone and he assumed she might bother him again. After all, he had known his sister for 10 years, so before Sola could find him, he had to escape. As soon as Sola opens the door, she already calls him brother father. Hermes used magic and instantly dashed through the window. When his sister calls him brother father, for Hermes this is the most irritating scenario. She weaves intrigues to make him head of the family, and on paper she is officially his daughter, but fortunately he senses her. He set off to the city just as the old man called him. He called him and asked to try their new product. He politely refused the old man. He already had his hands full, but the old man insisted because his right hand was free. Wandering the streets, he noticed the city is teeming with life. He froze in surprise when a woman suddenly hugged him from behind. She was Arushan, but not the one from the photo album. For the last 100 years, the name Arusha has been the most common among courtesans. Various girls bear it in honor of the legendary figure, a great sage and unparalleled beauty, and incredibly often those who work in professions related to beauty choose this very name. And that girl is no exception. She is one of many courtesans named Arusha, but she is one of the closest to him. However, Arusha asked him if he had free time. She is not as bad as his sister, but from time to time she drags him into trouble, even though he refuses. Rukia insisted. Their shops are completely empty, so he will be her guest. Of all the things Arusha could have asked for, this was undoubtedly the easiest and least troublesome. Arusha is still chasing after him, and even shows him part of her breasts. He was called, but Hermes looked indifferent, yet he turned around and went into the shop. Arusha was bitterly disappointed. He constantly ignored her flirtation. In the shop, Hermes calmly lay on Arusha's lap and gently massaged his hair. And then Erika shows him the menu to do something nice, but he refuses because laziness is true pleasure for him. Erika did not stop and said that she has a once-in-a-lifetime request. She asks Hermes to help increase the sales of their store, and he is puzzled. He has already helped them with sales. But Erika is not talking about that at all. Hermes's eyes suddenly sparkled when she said they got really good steak. His jaw dropped when Erika said it was from Dunamis, but his interest faded when she added that the steak was 37 years old. Because it was from that worst year when a typhoon and earthquake hit one after another, and most barrels got wet. His eyes lit up again when Erika said it was from one of the barrels that did not get wet. It is extremely rare, so he would have to pay a hefty sum. That is why he ordered her to immediately take it out, and Erika kissed him. He immediately went outside for the steak, and Hermes could not help but drool in his mind. It seemed that there was almost no steak left in the world, and this legendary bottle was in perfect condition despite the tragic history. He stood by the window and seemed to be looking for something. He instantly flew out the window. He sniffs and follows the scent leading to the path. Suddenly, a huge monster appeared in his path. He kicked the monster and sternly ordered it to retreat. And then he saw what he was looking for. He grabs several fruits and stubbornly ignores the monster on his back. He frowned when the monster stepped on a tree and it cracked. He did not hesitate, instantly struck the monster. The monster, it seems he did not even fight it. Not a single drop of sweat dripped from him. He was grateful that the other fruits were safe. The fruits he picked in the forest were savma plums, which are just perfect for Dunamis. This is the best way to enjoy it, until many people come and join them. Morning came, and waking up, he wondered how he even got home last night. He was too drunk then. When Sola appeared, the thought immediately flashed through his mind: trouble again. He apologizes, says he has no time for any problems. He cast a surprised glance at his sister, and she seemed to shine with happiness, assuring that he had already taken care of it. She was talking about Odumlu, the one who appeared in Lazarus's forest. The locals were in trouble and came straight to beg her for help. Hermes remembers how yesterday he went to the same forest and gathered some plums. So the monster he knocked down then is the very one she was talking about. He immediately denied it. Sola did not believe him. She went out herself and asked the people around. Some of them said they had seen him before and even gave testimony. Sola shone with joy. Her brother father, as befits, single-handedly defeated the monster. It seems Hermes could no longer deny it, so he came up with an excuse to go to the toilet. Blinded by the excitement from that ultra-rare steak, he accidentally killed the monster and did not even notice it. Hermes calmly read a book about the moment when Sola arrived. Even before he managed to hide the book, Sola had already grabbed that book. She frowned when she realized it was a photo book with selected partners. At first, she thought her brother was looking for a match. The photo album was actually for her. These were dating photos. They hadn't had such for a long time. The Cano family really became noble, probably that's why political marriages started happening again. Sola understood and immediately asked, "Is there anyone promising?" But her brother says no one stands out. They are all political alliances through marriage, that's why they are normal. She couldn't get rid of the thought, what will her father do to her brother? First, she was just Hermes' older sister. But since the inheritance was supposed to go to her, not him, she filed a lawsuit to become his adopted daughter, and Hermes became the head of the family. Since then, whenever it comes to household matters, she always asks him for help and calls him brother-father. Hermes completely rejected them, all he would never give her to such guys. Sola laughed. She thought he was actually serious about it. Hermes explained that she was the only daughter of the house Cano and actually a princess. Sola was satisfied. She winked and asked him to protect her until she got married. Hermes agreed. They read it, but the next day people exploded with panic when they found out that Sola was kidnapped. Hermes suddenly jumps up from the chair and asks, "Who did this?" He simply did not believe it when Mimi said that the kidnapper was the Demon King himself. Demon King Hikari turned out to be a distant relative of the Cano family. 400 years ago, the former Demon King and the first head of the Cano clan were the same man. Both had children. The Cano family remained human through generations, and the child of the Demon King Hikari from the long-lived lineage is still alive and reigns. So for Hermes from the Cano family, she is approximately his great-great-great-great-grandmother. Mimi, holding a crystal ball, informs him that a letter has arrived from that Demon King, so he immediately smashed it. Suddenly Hikari appeared, introduced herself, and having heard the whole story, asked if Sola was a princess of the Cano clan. Hermes agreed Sola was the only daughter, and Hikari admitted that her father always said, "The Demon King always kidnaps princesses." That is why she took Sol and ordered Hermes to go to the Demon King's castle if he wants to save his sister. This is the traditional way Demon Kings make contact with humans, and the Demon King himself communicates only in one-way mode, so she will not accept questions. She waved goodbye and disappeared. Later Hermes went to the castle, and Sola kept calling his name, begging him to save her. But it seemed he did not believe her. Out of the blue he asks her, "Stone or paper?" Sola instantly answers scissors and even shows her hands. Finally Hermes realized that she was not really kidnapped and was not tied up. Then Hikari appears and threatens him fiercely. If he does not come, something terrible will happen to his sister. He asked what exactly would happen just to know. According to his father, princesses kidnapped by demon kings were usually cruelly humiliated, but with Sola it was the opposite. He got annoyed because their ancestors taught such nonsense, and Hikari, hearing this, ordered him to stop babbling. If he really wants to save Sola, he will have to triumphantly defeat her. Hermes agreed, but instantly assessed the situation and watched so that no one would see whatever they did. Hikari suddenly lunges forward and attacks him. It was then that he realized they were going all out. Hikari rushed at him and kicked. Under such force, Hermes was thrown back. He crashed into and pierced a huge mountain. But it seemed attack didn't even scratch him. He even asked again if she had just called him a prince, because if so, she should be consistent. He snapped his fingers and a colossal force for a counterattack appeared. Unfortunately, Hikari deflected it. But he was not finished yet. Hikari didn't notice that he was already behind her and with a sharp kick pushed her to the ground. Hermes was puzzled. Hikari, though incredibly exhausted, seemed to enjoy the fight. They kept throwing themselves at each other, and before they noticed, 30 minutes had passed. Hikari was catching her breath and admitted that he had subdued her well, but wherever Hermes looked, Hikari was completely unharmed. It even seemed absurd to him when Hikari said that as long as there is light she will rise again. She will be reborn again and again, and by that time he will have grown old and will no longer be around. And for Hermes, it was just for show. She tried so hard in this performance that she even overdid it, while meanwhile the castle began to crumble piece by piece. That is why Sola is calling him. He instantly rushed to her to grab. Sola rejoiced he was still protecting him, even if it is a futile battle, only for the sake of the spectacle. He believes girls become happy when they are treated like a princess. They both froze, looking at the ruined castle. Sola was satisfied because even Hermes' aftercare was perfect. She still hears her father's words, "Leave it better than you found it." Hermes did not like this. He considered their ancestors very annoying. Though he looks happy as if no one will notice what he did there. But he was wrong. Later he found out that Hikari publicly declared that he defeated her. His fame only grew, and this finally threw him off track. Meanwhile he watched Medea waving a sword. When he spoke her name, The girl lit up with joy, seeing that the master was looking at her. Medea is one of the granddaughters of the sword-bearing Saint Perseus, and she was a student of Hermes. The girl asks about her skill in swordsmanship. Hermes says that she has grown considerably, and her leagues have become better than they were at their first meeting. Medea stood with eyes full of tears. She did it. Finally, all her hard work and 9 hours of sleep bore fruit. Hermes notices the sword leaning against the tree. He took it and ordered Medea to apply her technique on it. Medea was embarrassed and began to doubt, but Hermes pushed her to attack him for real. He wanted to see her progress. He instantly rushed at Hermes to strike. He rejoiced Medea put much more into that swing than he thought. And suddenly he grabs her sword with just 2 fingers. Although it caused a colossal impact that destroyed everything around behind him. Medea's eyes sparkled. She was already expecting that its master would stop her attack so easily. Because of this, she began to scrutinize her movements, hesitating whether to make the sword swings gentler or simply practice the forms once more. Hermes smiles. He is genuinely impressed by Medea and her diligence. She is worth it, so he decides to take the training more seriously. He subjected her to his magic, so Medea could not move. He was holding her. He raises his right hand, and Medea also raises hers. He repeated each of his movements like a shadow. It is a simple spell. The whole body simply copies each of his movements. But Hermes is clearly irritated. Instead of asking why they are doing this, Medea just praises him. He roared at her that he is teaching her new techniques. But as always, Medea had to bite her tongue and not tell anyone that he was her master. Medea agreed and declared that her master was Nanasu, and she was a student of the Nanasu school. Then he began to teach Medea, and she seemed to truly listen to him seriously. After some time, Hermes was happy. Her movements were already flawless. Only persistent training remained. Medea bowed to her teacher and was deeply grateful. To their surprise, suddenly 3 maids appeared holding posters. Suddenly they realized several trees were being cut down because of their practice. Medea was worried whether her master would be okay, but the master was confident that no one would think it was because of the training. To them, it would just look like they were practicing a trick at a party, the same usual spinning. They were right. Several girls even asked if they were rehearsing some performance announced by their poster. Hermes was stunned when the butler suddenly appeared out of nowhere. He even had a sign that said, "This is not it." Hermes recalls a joke about how the first head taught His Majesty the King fencing. Supposedly, he used a similar set of movements. They say he tied their hands with a rope so that their movements became one and made the king's body learn the sword forms. But one of the fans noticed they were not tied with a rope. Imagine he uses magic. So they start giggling and chatting. Medea was afraid that her master's identity would be revealed, but despite that, she was glad when he was praised. He doesn't know what to do with those fans. So she returns to her master. It seems Hermes accidentally became even more famous. With his persistent tale, he cursed the butler. Next day, he went to the shop of Rusha. There he learned that recently more and more girls have been kidnapped. Rusha, clearly worried, asks him to look into it. Therefore, he immediately ordered to start an investigation. According to the old man, many people have disappeared from his lands. None of these cases have been solved. It seems that the same criminal is behind all these cases. In all the recent cases which have increased, the targets were always young women. Their age is from 12 to 25 years, and it seems none of them were married. Hermes suddenly realized, if they were that age, then it is quite natural that someone like Urushiath, madam of a brothel, would pay attention to them. Mimi also added that the money had already been delivered directly to the homes of the kidnapped girls. About 10 gold coins. Hermes froze in shock. Such an amount would require 10 years of hard work to earn. If the money changes hands, Mimi immediately decides, this is not kidnapping but human trafficking. Hermes called him an idiot. That's too much money even for the price of a girl on the black market, and such people wouldn't bother bringing money to the victim's family. His gut told him that this case was connected to something big in the underground. If something turns out to be linked to a huge criminal network and they uncover it, their fame will soar to the skies. He hated fame, so he pitied Erudion and pretended their conversation never happened. Suddenly the light flashed. It was a signal. The protective spell he cast to protect his sister was activated. He broke out of Mimi's house and rushed to find his sister. Before his eyes appeared a carriage, as if he felt that his sister was inside him. So he draws his sword and hurls it right under the front part of the carriage to stop them. And then he slowly approaches his sword and pulls it out from under the ground. With one swing, he smashed half the carriage. The poor horse was left in horror. He ordered the driver to leave the person inside. He insisted that she was his sister. The driver refused and said that his action would be considered treason against the kingdom. Hermes frowned, confused. Right before him stands the current queen of the kingdom of Karamba. Her Majesty Erika Rika Karamba, what a name, I want to immediately dance the cha-cha as soon as I hear it. What's more, the Kingdom of Karamba is one of the 5 great powers of the continent. Among the 5, this state is considered the most powerful, so strong that, they say, it could single-handedly fend off the other 4. Unless the demon king of Kamatoria intervenes. Erika calls out to the coachman named Eleni. It seemed that Eleni understood her. She drew a blade and was about to attack. Hermes uttered a spell and with a single wave of her hand easily threw her dagger. Hermes was stunned when her hood was removed. Suddenly it became clear she was just a little girl. He thought that she was the queen's personal maid and about a head shorter than Erika, and the queen, enraged, demanded that Eleni help her escape. But Eleni did not want to, and tears stood in her eyes. She whispered that her Hermes was strong. The queen ordered her to cast that spell. Eleni hesitated, clenching her fist. Still she obeyed the order and rushed at Hermes, and quickly hugged him. Hermes froze when he felt magical energy awakening on her body. He was going to self-destruct. He warned her, don't do anything reckless. He touches her back. Suddenly she realized she was casting 2 spells at once. The white one is teleportation. Her plan is to kill the enemy and teleport Erika to safety, but the problem is that this entails her self-destruction. If he tries to forcibly disable either of them, it's like breaking a crust and an explosion could happen instantly. The spell cannot be removed from the outside. He picked up the little girl and apologized in advance. And he kissed her approximately. Erika looks puzzled. Nothing happened because Hermes dissolved both spells from the inside, removing them like layers and melting them, and Erika couldn't believe he was really capable of that. Hermes said that it was not only Eleni's magical energy Erika implanted it. When she admitted this, Hermes exploded with rage because she knew what would happen. In response, Erika said that it was just a way to be prepared in case of trouble, and Elena was only a tool for her. Then she saw Eleni quietly crouched on the ground. Hermes asks her if she understands what she has done. After all, Eleni was her servant and they grew up together since infancy. She asked if he knew her and then proudly declared that she was the queen of Karamba. Though Hermes was indifferent to her status for him, only the fact that she was human mattered. He angrily said she still denies it. He carried her in his left hand like a child and slapped her on the buttocks. Erika was boiling with rage, but Hermes did not even flinch and advised her to learn from mistakes. Can she really throw away someone dear to her like that again? If she does, he will spank her again. When Erika said that she was the queen and he just slapped her, Hermes insists that it does not matter because he will spank her as many times as necessary. Erika calms down and Shaylee asks his name. When she heard his name, she whispered to him, beloved. But Hermes did not hear this and asked her to repeat it. Erika called him beloved again. She thanked him for scolding her harshly. It was her first time, but she was glad about it. Hermes froze in shock when his sister appeared as if out of nowhere. And explained that because he truly scolded Erika, she was now completely in love with him. He could not understand how such a thing was even allowed. Step by step they walked through the city. People could not believe their eyes. Brother and sister were walking together. Someone thoughtfully wondered who Erika was, who was also walking with them, and Hermes thought that this could make a scene. Erika threw out an idea, let her just make them disappear. Hermes opened his eyes wide, did not allow her, and exclaimed that they would simply move to another place. He used his magic and suddenly a light flashed above them. The people were stunned with amazement. They were filled with surprise when they stepped out of the crowd. Erika was puzzled. She did not know where they were, so Hermes replied that they were at his estate. Erika repeated his words and added again, darling. Again, and this irritated Hermes. So he told her directly, I am Hermes Cano, just a humble man. Erika giggles and decides that this is definitely fate. After that, a maid came and informed Hermes that a guest had come earlier. But since he was not home, they said they would return. Hermes told the maid that if the visitor returned, the report could wait. He also added to take the sister away and leave him with Erika. When they were alone, he sharply demanded an explanation of why Erika was running around playing the kidnapper. Eleni interrupted and accused Hermes of rudeness, but Erika winked at her and said it was all right. He said that for generations, the Queen Karamba had nurtured a rose garden. This is not some random garden. All this was started by the great reviver of Karamba, Lady Rika Karamba. She gathered the most beautiful women from all over the world to create a harem. And the Garden of Roses is when she solemnly presents this entire harem to the man she herself chose. Erika argued that he had not heard that story, the tale of the master of the Garden of Roses. It sounded somewhat familiar, but Hermes was not sure. He froze in surprise when Erika added that the owner of the demonic sword was his ancestor. Their ancestors were the same, so Erika immediately recognized it as soon as she heard the name Cano. That is why Erika created her own harem. She searches for and gathers the best women of the land and, of course, generously rewards their families. He sharply reminds Hermes, you can't even imagine how hard it is to find truly exceptional women. Hermes seemed uninterested in her business and simply pushed her aside. He seriously told Erika, do not treat your vassals as if they are disposable, and she looks confused. She apologizes to Alina, so she was simply left jaw-dropped because the queen literally apologized to her. Erika also promises she will never do that again. Hermes even asked not to be called darling, but Erika refused and a quarrel instantly flared up between them. Suddenly Harry appeared out of nowhere. Here he is, the very guest the maid spoke about earlier. Suddenly Kaori notices Alina and Erika remembers that by the order of the previous demon lord, he is forbidden to touch any person who is not his equal. She could hardly believe that Hermes was on par with the demon lord. She blushed, realizing that he was even more amazing than she had imagined. For some reason, Kaori felt that she had just gotten involved much deeper. Hermes was getting more and more irritated. Two were discussing various matters in their kingdom. They were Alina and Erika. He shouted at them, asking why they were here again. Unable to hold back, Erika asks him in response, what do you mean by his wife? And she was his sweet queen. Hermes looks at the girl with obvious irritation. Asks if she seriously thinks she can wander around his estate. She was the queen of Karamba, so she had to get down to business seriously. But he froze when Erika suddenly rushed at him and clung to him. She decided that he liked women who took their work seriously. Hermes sweated and reluctantly admitted it. He was also surprised at how she made all these decisions so quickly and confidently. Erika looks puzzled. Usually it is the rulers who first consult with advisors and ministers on such matters. But all this was unnecessary for Hermes. He said that if the king and queen know their business, it is much more effective for them to make all decisions independently. Hermes froze with admiration. No doubt before him was the queen of a powerful country, and that was why Erika blushed. Paying students a salary is one of the biggest reasons why Karamba is such a powerful country. In most countries, children are seen as a workforce, so they rarely get a chance to study. But in Karamba, students really receive money just for going to school. This gives parents peace of mind to have children, send them to school, and develop their talents, and this whole virtuous chain makes the country stronger. And the one who ensures everything works like clockwork is Erika, which is why he was impressed by her talent. Although he was impressed, it did not mean he would let her just wander around his estate. Erika teased him and asked why not. Hermes got angry and shouted at her that she was in Aijin, and Erika replied that the demon lord from Komtoria often appears to him. Hermes decided that Kaori was not just his aunt but the ruler of demons, and even if he tried very hard, he could not stop her. Eleni interrupted and said that if people found out that Erika was in another country, it would become a huge diplomatic scandal. Erika reassured them, don't worry, I am disguised. The method invented by their ancestors is extremely hard to notice. Hermes did not believe and asked how exactly she disguised herself. They both froze at his questions. Erika asked him how she looked to him, and Hermes simply said that she was in the same super luxurious white dress as last time. Hermes froze in surprise when Erika suddenly rushed to him, shining with joy. She insisted that her disguise did not work on him, but it turned out simply, he did not wear the ring that suppressed his power. America was covered by a disguise created by the royal mage using Columbidier magic. This mask cannot be seen through unless your magic level is higher than that of the one who cast it. Though Hermes' magic is stronger than Erika's magic. Second quickly made a decision. He ordered Eleni to immediately begin dissolving the Garden of Roses. She also added that as soon as the Garden of Rose is disbanded, she will make sure that each girl receives a decent amount of money and is sent home. Eleni asked confusedly if she was really so sure, having spent so much effort to gather them. Erika believes that her version of the garden is filled with girls selected to her taste. She decided they start with a clean slate and select girls according to Hermes' tastes. It seemed the latter finally understood her point, and Hermes wanted to argue. But Erika smiled slyly. She was going to find girls who were exactly his type. Hermes froze without words because everything suddenly turned into a complete headache. Morning came. Hermes wakes up with a dry throat. Yesterday he drank too much. He suddenly remembered that today he has a quest to conquer Lord Slime. Lord Slime appeared right at the border of Cano territory. His gaze fell on a bottle of water standing on the nightstand. He didn't know if it was from Sola or Mimi's, but whoever brought it, he was a true savior. He did not notice at all that a letter was lying nearby. And he suddenly exploded when out of nowhere the princess suddenly burst into his room. Later they ride in a carriage. He had a long face not because of lack of sleep, but because the princess was following him step by step. She is Princess Rina. When she called him her master, Hermes corrected her. He was only an instructor. Rina is the princess of the kingdom of Aegina, where the lands of her family lie, and at the same time the daughter of the king. Rina is a skilled and decent person, but getting a compliment from her is almost like hearing praise from the king himself. Once he accidentally defeated her father, the king, and after that they both became his students at the so-called Nanasu school. One way or another, Rina said about the quest that she was grateful that he accepted it. A battle with such power as the Demon King is beyond her strength for now, but she decided, a fight with the Slime Lord will still give a lot of lessons. Hermes decided that this was just another trick to raise his reputation, so he directly asked her if that was exactly why Rina confirmed it. She said that it annoyed her to see him upset after his minor troubles. Knowing what he was really capable of, it hurt her to watch it, especially as a friend. She knew he had already defeated one, so she decided that the Slime Lord would not be a problem. That is why she asked for it, and that is why Hermes agreed to take the matter. Then the carriage stopped somewhere and Hermes seemed bored. The carriage was going too slowly. Rina apologized and subtly hinted that he was next to her. No matter what, he noticed several slimes with their king and told her that he would start and Rina would only observe. Hermes must make sure that he no longer gains Rina's respect. He will put a full stop with the perfect touch. He must remain unnoticed and use minimal force. Only 10 of his magic will be used against an horde of this scale. And it must be a single strike that destroys everyone at once. He summoned a shockwave and charged it in his hand. He fired towards the monster. Because of this, a huge explosion erupted. He slid his finger over all the slimes but froze in shock when Rina exclaimed, "What did you do?" He asked himself if he is losing control over his power, but that cannot be. He was puzzled about what the reason could be. Suddenly, he remembered the bottle he drank from earlier. In the letter from Kari it was written, "This is a secret potion. If he drinks it, his magical power will double. They will have a fierce battle. That's all. It's all because of this potion." But Rina thought he had become even stronger. So she starts praising him and babbling things he doesn't want to hear, just to boost his reputation. Hikari and Hermes were walking under the rain of pink sakura petals. The Demon King exclaimed with delight that this was Hanami, the tradition of admiring sakuras with food and drinks, usually a picnic outdoors. Hermes, it seems, was not interested. Hikari explained that this was a tradition from her father's homeland. He once brought a sakura and planted it all over the continent, and Hermes guessed that she was hinting her father was the one who started Hanami. Let's put that aside, they didn't have any food or drinks at all. Hikari told him that the servants would bring everything later, and she herself only brought her share. And she, full of admiration, showed him a skull. Once her father said that the Demon King Durikatan drank honey from the skull of an enemy for fun, and it seems Hermes wants to argue over that skull. Hikari decisively stopped him. They had only come for Hanami, and this was no place for fights. She also added, "Dad said they shouldn't start quarrels over picnic spots. And they also have to carry all the trash back with them the whole way." Hermes realized that Hikari really just wanted to enjoy Hanami, so he stopped. Hikari told him that she almost forgot. When the father arranged Hanami, he always remembered to gather human flowers as well. He brought flowers to her dear nephew just for him. When women go to meet them, Hermes couldn't hold back, his jaw dropped. Because there was Northern Arusha, a stunning beauty with fair skin and sharp eyes, a true icon. The second Arusha of the third generation. Seeing 3 generations with the name Arusha at once is a real rarity. The third with that simple-looking girl, this is Arusha of madness and pleasure. By day she seems modest, but as soon as she lies in bed, who would have thought what could happen? Hermes turned to Hikari and asked if she had called those 3. Hikari knew how much he loved Orakia, so that's why she brought them, and in return Hermes promised from then on to do anything for her and become her servant number 1025. He asks if she can flirt with them. When Hikari agreed, Hermes instantly let her go and went to the 3 of them. Eating with the 3 Arusha. Now he can die happy. And one of them asks him to show how skilled he was with a sword. Hermes decides to start with a sword dance and make his move. When it was all over, those women gathered around him and began to praise him enthusiastically. To them, he was incredibly handsome, even though he was a man, and he had a good time with the girls. Kavri shone with joy and was glad that she could be alone with herself. The main thing was that her nephew was having fun. That is the most important thing, and Hanami should be just like that to truly enjoy it. A few days later, a photo book was released, on the cover of which was a photograph that became the hottest trend of the latest Eritrea pose. Adia approached Hermes and demanded an explanation. Why did he take so many students? But as soon as she was in the room, reality hit. Hermes was with Rina and her father king, and she She was only the third student of the Nanesu school. But Sola was reading a photo album about a trend that is now insanely popular among Arushas, and behind it stands a mysterious mentor. Sola burst out laughing because her brother's father was now a celebrity. Hermes allowed his body to lie down on the bed. He reproached himself for drinking too much, and because of that lost his head. In the town of Binsu, the boy was running, gasping and catching his breath, until he reached a dead end. He froze when the person behind him said that he had nowhere left to run. He shouted loudly and sharply closed that book in his mind. He was trembling with fear, but it turned out it was only his friend and they were just playing. While they continued to wander, the girl noticed playing tag with him isn't even fun, and when they catch him, he even screams like a girl. The boy turned to her and said that she was without a mask. He added that he was afraid to play tag and just wanted to read his books. The girl told him that books alone would not make him stronger. He is a boy, so he must train swordsmanship and magic. He will become as strong as their lord. They continued to chat lively. He did not even suspect that the surrounding. Suddenly the sky darkened. When it happened, the girl got scared, and people started shouting and calling everyone to run. A meteorite is flying towards them. The girl was in shock and could not move her legs. They were trembling, and she felt sick. That is why the boy is holding her hand. Fortunately, Hermes appeared on the spot and saved them. He immediately drew the sword from the sheath and into many pieces. And then he shot magic at the M. Small fragments of the meteor fell from the sky. As soon as everything was done, he immediately left the place. Few children watched Hermes in awe. The boy fills with inspiration and decides to start training to become like him. The girl did not agree for her. He was wonderful just as he was. At home, our lazy one simply keeps his usual facial expression. Because Sola told him no matter how much he hid his powers, she still would not be able to ignore him, and that is what makes him a true lord. He was destined to shine before others and fully save them. Sola kept babbling. But Hermes froze in deep thoughts about that event, the sudden appearance of a meteorite, as if from nowhere, and wondered if it was somehow connected to other meteorite falls. He needs to find out what exactly causes this. For now, the most important thing is peace. Protecting everyday life is also his duty as the lord. Hermes set out for the royal capital of the kingdom of Ridimigina. He immediately knelt before the king and said that he had come at the summons. The king ordered him to raise his head and simply called him sensei, saying there was no need for those ceremonies. Hermes refuses because it is his duty, and the king smiles, for soon he will begin to bow to him like a student. The royal guards around them froze in shock when they learned that Hermes was the royal fencing instructor. Hermes did not rise from his knees and asked why he was summoned. The king explained that he wanted to reclaim what belonged to him. Then the guards drew 3 swords, those that belonged to his ancestor and had been left here. Since then, every royal mentor must carry one of them as proof and consider it part of the ceremonial attire. Then the king asked him to choose one of the 3 swords. Hermes stood up and followed the king, but as soon as he saw the swords, he knew the king was testing him. Apparently, they were arranged so that if he chose the strongest sword, he could curry favor with him. He asked permission to touch the swords and immediately realized it was a real trap. The right sword simple and a bit worn, nothing special. The middle one arouses suspicion. Essentially, it is a legendary sword, its blade wrapped in dragon fire. The left one has decent power. It is enchanted with magic and has a guard. It was clear that the king was pushing him to choose the pompous option in the middle, and it was humiliating. Even a child without the slightest imagination would think so. So he chose the right sword, the simple one. He felt that the king would be disappointed. But to his surprise, the king was delighted and said he did not know how amazing he was. Because each of those 3 swords his ancestors took up in different years of their lives when they were still young. The sword he chose belonged to his great-grandfather in old age. So in the twilight of his years, he was already the strongest. The legendary sword was no longer needed. He chose an ordinary sword, not a legendary one, so it became clear. That saying turned out to be true. The king was no longer surprised. He expected this from his teacher. Even the royal guard seemed to be on his side, but Hermes did not like it. He already had a bad feeling. After that, the royal guards suddenly began tossing him into the air. Then Hermes returned home with the sword, where admiration sparkled in Medea's eyes. She reached out her hand and asked for permission to touch it, but Hermes did not allow her. She begged to at least touch it quickly or just to look, but Hermes objected. The sword was fragile and could break at any moment, and tears welled up in Medea's eyes. So Hermes took the sword and allowed her to look, but only from the outside. He swung the sword, but his jaw dropped when it suddenly split in half. The sheath slipped out of the scabbard. He thought it happened because it had been tossed in the air earlier. This is a historic sword gifted by the king, so it's better to hide it deep where no one will find it. He repaired the sword and sealed it with a bit of magic. Hermes wandered around their house. He got bored. He realized he lived in the same old mansion, walked the same old corridors, and entered the same old doors. He was sitting in the same old chair when Mimi came. Although he is old, he is completely different. He notices that the old man is a bit strange and is holding something on his back. So he asked if he was all right. The old man said they had an emergency. He dared to guess whether it was because of the toilet or if another meteor had fallen again. The old man said it was an even worse disaster than he had said. They confirmed that an abnormal outbreak of acharises occurred. The old man clapped his hands, ordering the maid to bring a plate with tiny droplets of water. Hermes finds it disgusting, but he still did not know what these things were. The old man explained that they are now spreading everywhere and reproducing at an abnormal speed. The state reports from all affected towns and villages spoke with one voice. The sky disappeared. Hermes could not believe it. The outbreak was of such scale that the sky disappeared, and this thing even at such size reproduces so much. The old man added that the scariest thing is not only their number. They did not eat people nor meat, nor vegetables. They did not even touch plants. They simply absorb water, and that is enough for them to start reproducing. In other words, they circle in search of water, draining ponds and rivers, even sucking underground moisture and gradually turning the entire region into a desert. Hermes thought that this was very bad. The country could fall in just a few days. He doesn't even suspect about Akris. But he immediately ordered Mimes to evacuate the people as far as possible. The old man immediately rushed to send evacuation orders throughout the territory. The reason for his order: no one would see him, no matter what he did. He came to the place and saw how bad everything was there because many Akris were sucking moisture from the soil. He had to do something. He immediately generated colossal power and struck the side of those Akris with it. But he noticed that they were recovering. As soon as he destroys one, they instantly reproduce. He released a huge force that filled the surrounding space too, so that from afar Hermes looked tiny. With this power, he could burn all the Akris to the ground faster than they could reproduce. Eventually, they finally got rid of Akris here. So he rushed away to the next infected zone. He kept moving from one place to another again and again, until he passed through all those 28 zones. After that, he collapsed exhausted on the bed, when suddenly the butler appeared. He immediately told him that he no longer wanted to do anything. The old man wanted to report the problem with the Akrises, but Hermes already knew how it would end because he was the one who destroyed them. But he was wrong because the butler told him that Akris had evolved. It seemed that the water creatures were swallowed one after another by a mysterious heat wave. Most disappeared, but a few still managed to survive. Those species were on the very brink of extinction, and yet they evolved. After evolution, Akris became a completely different creature in size. They were no different from humans. Hermes was absolutely exhausted after last night in District 28, so he decided to end the fight with one blow. He raised his sword and rushed into battle. After some time, all the Akris fell to the ground, breathless. That's why Hermes couldn't cope with the exhaustion that was oppressing him. After a series of fierce battles, Hermes was more exhausted than ever in his life. His life force indicator was empty, and all thoughts in his head had quieted. Erika was worried about him. She wondered whether to call all the doctors of the kingdom. Then Hermes growled and she asked him if he wanted to get married. In such a state, she really inserted those marriage things when a man can't get up from exhaustion. Even the thing between his legs probably wouldn't move. However, Hermes made a sound again. She realized that the man must be hungry. She quickly went outside to prepare something for him to eat. After some time, she returned and brought something meant to cheer him up. She prepared a legendary dish, said to be so powerful it could make a dying man jump out of bed with a nosebleed. She wasn't sure if she repeated the recipe perfectly, but she put her whole heart into it. She tried to feed him, but Hermes couldn't even open his mouth. Also, she takes the food and feeds Hermes with her mouth. She then thanked him for the food. Oh, what is this? He ate, she ate. Did they eat? Or maybe this is just not the speech bubble, or did she really thank for the food? Is this dry lip food? Hermes muttered that it was tasty. I think so myself. Before the FBI arrived, Erika was delighted. Hermes's hair color already looked better. He was just about to continue feeding him. Hikari suddenly appeared and burst through the window. She immediately ran to Hermes, who was still lying on the bed, and worried, asked Erika what happened. Is he dead? She added that if he died, she could bring him back provided she manages within 3 seconds. This is the 3-second rule her father taught her, and Erika scolds her for being so loud. She also says that Hermes is not dead, he is just completely exhausted for some reason. Kaori calms down and realizes she is right, his life force is just very low. She was sad. It is not fun with Hermes when he is like that. Erika agreed. That is exactly why she asked her to speak more quietly. But Erika froze in surprise. Kaori suddenly moved to the left and crashed into another wall, not the one from last time. She apologizes to Hermes for all the noise. She was already about to feed Hermes again when Kaori turned again and for the third time crashed into another wall. Erika looked irritated, but Kaori was not bothered by it. For the Demon King, this was usual, and she showed her what she had brought, a crystal dragon. Its liver is a real remedy for fatigue. She tore it from the puppy and pulled out the liver. Erika finds it disgusting, so she asks the Demon King if it is safe. When Kaori raises a finger up, Erika has no choice but to try. This time Kaori holds the liver in her mouth. The next day, 3 maids were eagerly whispering about yesterday's events. Hikari, the Demon King, and Queen Erika behaved as if they were Hermes' personal maid, and this made the maid from China, proud to serve Hermes. This lazy one of ours, who seemed fine after yesterday's fatigue, heard them. Because he was popular wherever he went. People waved and called, trying to get his attention so he would stop and they could give him something. In the end, he had so much, and it seemed wrong to him to just keep taking it. He decided to buy a souvenir for Sola on the way home. On the way, he suddenly felt as if the air around him trembled. And a wild fog rose on his back. He also felt the overheated steam. This is not the fire that just burns, this is the fire that melts you. A struggle was raging in his head, to dodge or not. Because no matter what his actions were, people would still praise him, so now there is no point in arguing about his reputation. So he slammed his foot on the ground to create a gust of wind. He did not understand what had happened. He looked closely at everyone, searching for which idiot had set off fireworks in the middle of the city. His eyes fell on a girl. He saw the girl, so he asked who she was. The girl introduced herself as Sophia Despina. The girl shouted his name fiercely and asked if he had forgotten her. Hermes rummaged through his memory, trying to recall who she was, but her name was completely unfamiliar to him. A year had passed, so he asked if they had met somewhere before. He even thought that she might be from some store. The girl clenched her fists and insisted that she had been waiting all this time. The girl was boiling with rage and unleashed enormous power. Hermes calculated her power turned out to be 3 times stronger than before. He immediately retreated and headed home. Sola greeted him as soon as he arrived. Suddenly she noticed that he was burned, and Hermes looked at his side and blushed when it finally dawned on him. Sola laughed at him. He smelled as if he had rubbed against pumice stone that perfectly toasted bread on steam. Hermes looked seriously and asked his sister if she had ever heard the name Sophia Despina. Sister agreed and asked if he knew the story about how the first leader led his 200 soldiers in battles across the land. Hermes nodded that he had heard about it, so Sola continued. The title given to the 200 who remained loyal to the very end was Despina. In the old language it meant the last vassal. Hermes did not recognize this name, but it was essentially a branch of their family. Sola agreed and said that most of the first 200 soldiers took the surname Despina. Over the centuries they united and became one big house. Having heard the story, Hermes suddenly realized they were indeed related, and decided that Sophia probably had some dealings with him. Still, this does not explain the rage she showed earlier. We were still talking about Sophia when, and suddenly the girl appeared on the doorstep of their house. Sola got scared and suddenly pressed against him her brother. Hermes thought she had tracked him by scent and guessed that maybe she was a beast person. Sophia orders him to get ready and quickly charges her power about 4 times stronger than before. Hermes was worried because Sola was there, but he had no choice. He uses his magic, instantly disappears, and it appears again on Sophia's back. He lightly tapped himself on the back, which hit her so hard that she fell to the ground unconscious. Hermes scratched his head because it was too close. He asked his sister if she was okay and was confused when Sola seemed to know this girl. He said that among all Despina, Sophia possessed the most powerful magic. In the end, Sola praises him for effortlessly putting down the Despina prodigy. He was irritated but still he asked what to do with Sophia, who had such a cute sleeping face and was even drooling. Earlier, the estate was attacked by a mysterious girl and it was seriously damaged. Hermes was grateful that Sophia was sleeping soundly. Sola teases him that he is such a good man, and Hermes responds by asking her to stop teasing. He was the one who panicked a bit after knocking Sophia out with a single palm strike. He asks Sola if Sophia has the strongest magic. Do they seriously rank people even within their own home? Sola replies that she heard Despina has 200 descendants. Their system is such that as soon as the Cano family requests, they instantly send the necessary forces, and that is why they are ranked by combat power to fuel competition. This only proves more strongly how deeply these brothers and sisters are connected to Despina. Sola also added that Sophia is now the first in Despina. Her magic is unparalleled, she is insanely knowledgeable, a true prodigy who appears once in a decade in magic, and Hermes stopped her because he was curious why the girl followed him. He remembered nothing. He also mentioned that he was attacked even before they spoke in the city. Sola became worried. Despine has reached the point of destroying the Lord's estate, and Hermes cannot just wave it off. She also added maybe it's because the master is too pathetic, and Hermes felt flattered by that. But his problem is Sophia's murderous intent. It seemed to him that it was something too personal and obsessive. Sola pondered the word obsessive, but before he could respond, Sophia woke up and froze. Sola was standing before her. She instantly jumped out of bed. It was clear that she knew Saul. If Saul was here, then Sophia was in the estate. She immediately apologized for having lost control earlier, and Solis smiled and reassuringly said that it was nothing. The main thing was that she was okay. They had just started talking when Hermes intervened and greeted Sophia just as the girl cast a glance at him. She instantly shot fire in his direction. Hermes dashed to run away, but Sophia told him to just stand there. Hermes was embarrassed that someone had gone so far for him, but Sophia angrily asked, how dare he say that after what he had done? He froze when Saul let her go. She called her by name. She knew if she didn't stop it was the end for her. She apologized for her behavior but couldn't utter a word when Saul asked why she attacked Hermes. She was silent and seemed afraid to tell the truth. Solis smiles at her and says that he will lend her his power if she doesn't mind. She approaches her and insists that the Despina and Cano families have been connected for centuries. Formally, they were master and servant, but essentially one family. She extended her hand and added that you can talk to her about anything. She even imagined her as her older cousin. Sophia was glowing with joy. She immediately whispered something to Sola in her ear. She laughed and told her brother that there is no secret that cannot be kept. Hermes, however, was puzzled by this secret. So Sola asked him directly, does he really remember nothing? She asked if he had ever come for Sophia, not even once. Hermes froze in shock upon learning that during an ordinary conversation he had confessed to Sophia. They had no idea that two gossiping maids were sitting on their roof. Mimi saw them and thought it was dangerous. That day Hermes was giving orders to Mimi. He wanted to allocate more money for several directions. The square around the fountain was damaged in several places, so it was necessary to urgently send a crew for repairs. Mimi interrupted him and quietly whispered, if that's all right, and he shifted his gaze to Sophia. Someone hid on the bookshelf and watched Hermes closely. Hermes himself told the butler not to worry. The steward indignantly said that this was simply nonsense. A Somion from the Despen family barging in during his watch without permission, and insisted that Hermes immediately stop her or apply punishment. Hermes was noticeably nervous and said that it might be true that situation is really difficult. When the valet told him that he had already heard this story, he suddenly stood up and accused Sola, saying that she was the one who spread it. The steward laughed and said, if I started talking about imposing punishments for this, I would be very disappointed. He raised his thumb towards Sophia and said he would leave the rest to them. And he leaves the room. Now Sophia and Hermes found themselves alone in one room, and no one dared to utter a word. Both gasped when Erika suddenly appeared together with Alina and rushed to Hermes. Sophia opened her eyes wide when Erika called him darling and said she missed him. Elaine seemed worried about Sophia's feelings and cast a look full of pity at her. Sophia heard and saw everything, how Erika clung to him. That's why she couldn't control her anger and release her flame, shouting Hermes is a fraud and running out of the room. Erika didn't understand who that girl was, so Hermes said it was Sophia. He was stunned when he found out that Erika already knew about Sophia, a promising girl from the Despina family. Then she asks Hermes what Sophia has to him and warns that if she is too cheeky, she will deal with her. Hermes quickly objected. He told her that apparently in childhood he said something like, someday I will make Sophia my fiancée, and Sophia took it seriously, but he completely forgot about it. After that early reaction from Sophia, Erika undoubtedly understood. She likes Hermes. Somehow a little jealousy creeps into her. She decided to do everything to get along with Sophia. After all, it is a tradition passed down by Lady Erika. He smiles and encourages Hermes to follow Sophia. Meanwhile, Sophia, furious, kept scolding herself, constantly calling herself an idiot. But in her thoughts she worked and desperately wanted to become a girl worthy of Hermes. When she heard that he became the head of the family and the king recognized him, she trained magic even more fiercely. She cried because, after all, he forgot everything. To her surprise, Hermes was already sitting on her back, bowed before her, and sincerely apologized. She was too stubborn and angrily said that she did not want him to apologize. He continues to release her power straight into the sky. When Hermes saw this, he suddenly clearly remembered everything. Sophia was exactly like that when they first met. Then he approached her and anxiously asked if she was alright. She was casting spells so carelessly. Young Sophia convinced herself that she was just trying to calm down and warn him not to interfere. But Hermes did not follow him. Instead, he asked if something had happened. And there she confessed that she had lost several times in a duel to a child 3 years younger than her, but she was mocked again, called the weakest. Hermes disagrees. To him, it does not look like that at all. He added that her magic and quick shooting are impressive, but the most important thing is how she can calm down and not rely on others. It was then that he said that if he ever got married, he would want such a strong girl. Sophia blushed, so she continued to release magic to calm down and ask him to leave her alone. He had never thought that way. Probably that's why Sophia became so strong that she rose to the highest rank. He remembered that he spoke sincerely, then straight from the heart. He put his hand on her shoulder and told her to just go with the flow. He placed magic on her shoulder that flowed from his hand. Hermes was glad that she understood immediately. He advised her, "This is exactly how you should do it when casting fast spells. If you increase efficiency, both power and the number of shots will grow." Sophia couldn't say a word, so he encouraged her, "Try it." Sophia agreed, so that's why Erika, one who watched her lightning-fast shooting, was a little jealous. Later, Hermes went to the Rudius shop. The girl was gently massaging his head when suddenly, the one who asked him if he was getting married gladly greets him, but Hermes denies it. Asha could not believe it. Rumors were spreading everywhere. She talked about Sophia, with whom he has been getting along well lately. There are rumors that at first they did not get along, but Hermes resolved it sincerely and seriously. When he proposed, Hermes was disappointed because the last part was completely made up. In his mind it was like this: if you break everything down into crumbs, it is not entirely untrue, and there are parts he must admit are not entirely false. Arusha laughed and said that whether it is true or not, if he gets married, then he should properly tell them about it. Boruchia needs to get to know the wife of their favorite costumer well and understand if they can get along. Hermes was puzzled. Archa seriously explained that they share information about their clients. In other words, the consequences: he will fall for a courtesan and he will be lost, but if she stops coming, that is also bad. As if a fine restaurant gave him recipes so he could cook the same at home. She also added that if he does not do it properly, he will be yelled at or dragged into a family quarrel. Hermes was stunned that Arakia could think such a thing. Later, Arusha invited him to go for a drink and promised to pay. Hermes agreed but did not believe her because he knew that in the end he would be the one paying. After this, Hermes found himself in darkness together with a huge spider and its web. He did not understand why he ended up here. This happened because a few hours ago Arusha and he were sitting and drinking in her shop. They were talking about jealousy. In his mind, Sophia's jealousy towards Erika had already subsided. But if she turned that jealousy towards Arusha, he would be in trouble, so it was better for him to keep her happy. He asks Arusha with curiosity, "What do girls love? What truly makes them happy?" The girl says that tattooing is simply on everyone's lips, shocked that Hermes did not know what Tataroka was. Archa explains that it is a super rare egg of a spider monster, smooth and chewy. When he adds it to the drink, it starts to crumble. Drinking this is called tattooing. It is something that delights with someone special, and that is why he stands before that spider monster bee. He decided to grab it right now. Meanwhile, in the mansion, Sophia was calmly sitting and reading a book. Suddenly, an explosion burst out. And then from the clouds of smoke, Hermes emerged. He shouted for her to take it and handed her a small bag. She opened it and saw that inside was Tataroka, and she blushed. Although she was used, she still accepted and thanked Hermes. But it seems Sophia is misinterpreting everything again. She believes that Hermes loves her and even says to him, "I love you." Second stood confused and did not know what to say. He saw nothing wrong with hearing "I love you." No wonder on Aruch's advice, he will regret his action the very next morning. The next day in the office, Mimes and Hermes seriously discussed the overdue taxes of the village Shiramero. According to the butler, recently they started cheating with payments. So there is no specific reason. The butler says it is not difficult, so he asks the Lord to move on to the next report. But for Hermes, it was really important, so he asked the butler to leave it in his hands. Because this could be his chance, he needs proof that will show him as an incompetent lord who cannot even handle simple tax collection. He went out and wandered, thinking about how he would fail and everyone would call him a loser. Suddenly, he heard something. The man was boiling with rage and shouted at the collector, saying that he was good for nothing. The man trembled and burst into tears. This is Nasos, a petty debt collector. Nasos decided that gentleness would work and kept inserting the word "das" into his sentences, which The man became even angrier and hit him with all his might. The man said that only actions would prove he was serious and added, "Stop looking for excuses and leave Nasos." He cried again, considering himself completely useless. It was then that Hermes appeared and invited him to eat because he knew he could use him. So they went into an establishment where food was served and ordered a whole bunch of dishes. Nasos trembled with fear before Hermes and, unable to bear it, whispered, "What do you want?" Hermes admitted that he wanted to ask a favor, but before telling about it, he introduced himself. They exchanged names and even shook hands, and as if too late, Naso noticed that he was from the Cano family. And when he realized who was standing before him, he immediately stood up and asked if he was the lord of their possessions. Hermes agreed and immediately ordered him to sit down because one cannot speak while standing. Nasos went after him and he explained, "There is a village Shiramero, they are behind on taxes." In short, he needs Nasos to go and collect this money. He was ready to give him 10 Nasos. Jaw dropped because it was a huge amount. The offer was good, but he refused because he himself thought he wouldn't manage. He had been broken all his life, his own brother had just disowned him, so he could not do it at all. Hermes sharply interrupts him and pushes, "You can," because he saw potential in him, but in his thoughts this potential actually meant only a chance of failure. Nasos was stunned that he believed in him, so Hermes continues and says that he believes in his strength and power, although in reality in his head it was the opposite. Nasos clenched his fist and remembered that his parents always told him he was good for nothing. Then someone said those words to him and he decided to do it. He is ready to risk his life for Hermes. Then he suddenly ran out. Hermes now confusedly did not know whether his decision was right or if he accidentally pressed some strange button in him. 6 months flew by. Nasos actually managed. He met his true self and reforged his mind and body anew. They came again and again to the village head's house, but at first he did not pay, firmly saying, "You cannot give what we do not have." Nasos recalls that he promised Hermes to stake his life on the line and he would stand firm until he achieved results. He would not budge an inch until the boss paid. He took it seriously and traveled to the village daily for months. The chief eventually gave in and stubbornness prevailed. The elder will collect every last penny in that village and pay him. When Dvoretsky heard about Nishu's, he was stunned. Hermes not only collected the debt but also raised such a wonderful young talent, and in the end Dvoretsky praised Hermes once again for the most important quality of a ruler. However, Naso could not hold back and cried when Hermes said he had done well. He even showed his muscles. Butler and Hermes widened their eyes at what they saw, so he told him that they could be used much more effectively, and added that instead of debt collection he has business projects he can recommend. Instructor at the gym. Meanwhile, 5 girls are gathering at one table. Here they are: Sola, Hikari, Rina, Medea, and Arusha. Rina seems to be confused by Arudia's very appearance. Though she said what she heard, supposedly she wants to talk about Hermes and also asks is it appropriate for her since she is married. Sola exclaimed joyfully that everything is fine, told everyone that she invited Hermes' close relatives and did not think about the bride at all, and then asked the Demon King and Rina if they were okay with it. Orchia only guesses how truly strong Hermes is, but for Sola this is not a problem at all. He thinks that everyone seems. He saw all those crazy antics that Hermes committed. According to Kaori, Hermes does not want to go all out, but sometimes it accidentally breaks through. Orutia says that Hermes is also somewhat absent-minded, and Medea boasted that her master is the strongest in the world, because he defeated her grandfather with one blow. Sola asked in surprise if Medea meant the sword saint, the strongest swordsman in the world. Medea agreed and added that her grandfather was incredibly strong, but against Hermes he had no chance. Sola understood and decided that Hermes is the strongest in the world, but she became curious, so she asked, "What about magic?" Rina replied that magical power, unlike swords, no one can predict. For example, she was already convinced of this when he took possession of the magical power of the Slime Lord. Our Orzia was completely confused. Marina explained that if you go by the stairs, you won't break your leg, but if you don't go, of course, you can break it. It's the same with magic. You can endlessly use weak spells, nothing will happen, but if you suddenly strengthen the magical power with a powerful spell, the body will inevitably feel the strain. The mana that remains after this always bears the imprint of how exhausted the body is. In Hermes' case, there was no trace left. Sola clearly made it understood that for him, the level of Slime Lord is no harder than going up and down the stairs. Oryusha interrupts and says that even if she is with Hermes and they find themselves in some totally hopeless disaster, Hermes still radiates such a calm, airy mood. He hasn't even shown full strength and still has energy in reserve, and Renau responds that she is definitely more reliable than someone who desperately fights for life every time. Medea exclaimed that her master almost never even drew his sword, only with spirit and Gazathere enemies will scatter like small fry. Erika wondered how much longer Hermes could hold on. He gave an example of how suddenly a huge meteor fell from the sky. Oryusha anxiously asks the three if this looks bad, and Kaori seems completely indifferent. Sola smiles. Because this is not a problem, the others also agree. So Renau created a meteor. That's why Hermes suddenly rushed to that place. But his jaw dropped when he saw 4 girls, well, of course, except Kaori. He appears like a hero in the midst of a crisis, solves everything with an absolutely calm face and only panics because someone saw him do it. But he still hasn't shown his true strength. Meanwhile, Queen Erika and Eleni were rushing by carriage. It seemed they were hurrying to make it to tea time. They paid no attention to the threatening people who were watching them. Meanwhile, Hermes noticed with surprise that Erika was not among those present. Because she is the one who always comes if she promised, and even appears unexpectedly when she said nothing. Especially when it comes to Hermes, she always desperately makes time for it. Suddenly Sola came up with an idea and with a smile suggested he give her a ride. Since Erika recently took care of him, it's only fair to repay her a little. I am going to buy her some delicious dorayaki. Meanwhile, Erika's guards were desperately fighting the monster in the middle of the road. Which is strange. One of the beasts lunged at her. Suddenly a sharp blow rang out. Hermes appeared and assured that everything would be fine now, but 2 of the extras looked at him with doubt. Is he really okay if the beasts keep biting him all the time? They froze in shock when the queen addressed him, darling, and whispered to him, I love you. Eleni suggested running away together with Erika, but he refused. He knew for sure that these super strong guards would handle everything. Surprisingly, they are coping with these beasts. But instead of praising them, Erika gave praise to Hermes, and the 2 knights hung their heads. Hermes persistently asked her to praise both. They really tried very hard. He reminded her to appreciate those who are near. He noticed that the guards were lying unconscious. Even Eleni and Erika. Gas crept in and they fell asleep. And it seems it does not affect him. Behind all this was Rasselmer, the heir of the Duke of the Kingdom of Karamba. Lady Erika is still young, and now she is overwhelmed by burning passion. So whatever Mir says now, she still will not listen, if he removes her. He must finally understand he is the one worthy of her. He injected some substance into the beasts. Hermes warned him, do not think that only the beasts can defeat you. Mir thinks that he was just pretending to be tough, because in the last fight he would have instantly died if not for those human shields. Night's when the meat shield made him serious, and he effortlessly defeated those beasts. He mockingly tells the ugly nobleman that he hasn't even shown all his strength yet. Mir shouted at him, show your true strength, before he injected something into his neck. Now that he has become uglier, he bursts in full of confidence. Hermes easily dodges all his attacks. Realizing that his strength is not enough, Mir injected himself with a boosting serum with a concentration of 120, which took his ugliness to a whole new level. His hand stretched out like tentacles, relentlessly attacks Hermes, but our guy easily stopped it, and it exploded. With one blow, Mir's ugliness reached its peak, and then he fell into a deep sleep. Erika thanked her beloved, and told him that she had been awake from the very beginning. In fact, her dress was specially sewn to protect both her life and her virginity. If Hermes decides to touch her, it will disappear itself. Seeing him silent, she wondered if he preferred to undress girls himself. Hermes remained silent, and asked what they would do with this idiot. Erika Numer had such habits for some time. He is an unfounded narcissist, convinced that everyone should fall in love with him, and if that does not happen, he sincerely believes that everyone else is to blame, not him. And then he stabbed him in the chest with a knife. He tried to harm the queen, therefore he faces the death penalty. Mare tried to use her to harm Hermes and even resorted to forbidden drugs. He is already hopeless, so she added another crime to his sentence. Usually, nobles are allowed to commit honorable suicide instead of public execution, but Mir will not even have this honor. He called him beloved again and asked him to repeat what he said earlier. But he has not yet given all his strength. Boys like to say that, but almost none of them truly give their all afterward. When he refuses, she approaches Eleni's unconscious body and it was her favorite diary. She will write those words before she forgets them. He constantly recorded everything she knew about him so far. She assured him, as long as she is alive, no one will see it. As soon as she dies, it will become an official archive to be passed on to future generations. And then his words sounded, I have not yet given my whole self, we will remain in history. Returned to Cano estate, just finished with the documents. Mimes leaves everything to Hermes. He begged the old man to stay a little longer, but the grandfather instantly went out the door. where he notices that something has been wrong with Sophia lately, but understands this is better than before. He asked if something had happened. Hikari burst in and kicked him at the same time. Thus, Sophia ordered her to step away from Hermes, called her capricious, and challenged her to the street. Sophia made the first move, launching ultimate raging mist in her direction. Hermes was impressed. He realized that her strength and power had significantly grown. He retreated because Hikari was her rival. She could not cause any harm. Because her mother ordered not to lay a finger on weak people, Hikari showed. She showed her power with one wave of her hand. She cut a huge boulder. And what she saw shocked Sophia to the core. Hermes warned her, but Hikari explained that she had not even touched her. And most importantly, what about this little girl? And Hermes whispered to her that she was Sophia Despina from the Cano family. Finally, Hikari was sure she was her niece. Despina was once one of her father's slave warriors, and since he had a child by one of those women, Sophia was her niece. Thank you. Sophia froze in shock when she heard that Hikari was the demon king, and now the conversation was over. Hikari called her nephew to have some fun together, if possible better somewhere where no one is around. I thought they meant something. Sophia quickly ran, shouting at them perverts. She misunderstood Hikari's words. She simply meant that when there are people nearby, they immediately get absorbed in their game. She lifted a huge boulder and announced that today's game was the arc of catching the giant stone ball. Meanwhile, Sophia sat alone on the shore of the lake, throwing pebbles into the water. When Hermes came, she told him to go have fun with the king of demons. Hermes replied that Hikari was exhausting, and immediately explained that he didn't mean anything indecent. Hikari is a supernatural being called the king of demons, and in many ways behaves like a child, so eventually he ended up fighting with her and battled until complete exhaustion. In this regard, it is much calmer with Sophia. Sophia was confused but still agreed to stay with him a little longer. Meanwhile, Hikari threw the massive rock straight to them. But Hermes easily destroyed it without any movement. Sophia froze in amazement when she saw it, and thinks how cool he is instinctively dealt with the giant flying stone and didn't even move from his place. On the other hand, Hikari laughed. She was already expecting such an act from her nephew. The lazy boy sprawled out and rested contentedly, looking at the photo when Sola came. He showed her the photo, and as soon as she recognized Mimi's, she instantly threw it away. And he showed another photograph. It was different before, but this time their maid was changing clothes. Sola sharply scolded him for photographing their maid and strictly reminded him that posting these photos online is strictly forbidden. Hermes quickly corrected himself. It was not him. He informing her that the photo had arrived for him this morning. Later, he went to Arudia and found out that their store had also been in terrible condition. Lately, many children had become victims of peeping. No one even sees the culprit. He sent the photo and asked him to help. Leaving the tavern, he was racking his brains on how to tackle this case. When he returned home, a commotion arose in front of the gates. What happened? They asked. The woman, embarrassed, did not answer. Seeing their face red as a tomato and holding the photo, he apologized and raises several photographs above the table. To his horror, the person in the photograph turned out to be himself. He blushed even more when the women enthusiastically praised his physique, and they desperately wanted to taste it. He entered his office and declared that he would catch the culprit at any cost. He activated his power and instantly scanned the surroundings. And when he noticed a person, he jumped up in surprise. It was his sister and her panties. He sharply retreated. 20 minutes passed and he still could not catch the culprit. Next day, Sola set off to his office, but it turned out that the window was broken. Meanwhile, in Binsu, same table stood in the corner. People stood puzzled. No one had seen the photographs. Meanwhile, Hermes was hiding until he was clutching a photograph of his sister in his hands. He muttered that whoever was behind this incident, he did not feel any presence at all. At the Solo estate, he was under maximum security and was changing clothes. The man was quietly giggling at the photograph, giving himself away. He was taken away when he previously passed by the maids. He stopped in front of Sola. He used to call her an old witch. He photographed her to later distribute these photos for free. That is exactly how he will become a god again. Suddenly, a huge hand grabbed him. Hermes did not even suspect that the culprit would turn out to be a boy who could use magic. The ghost was shocked. This guy saw him and even dared to ask who he was. Hermes did not say his name, saying that the voyeur did not deserve to know his name. He tightened his grip and the ghost's body crumbled. The ghost shouted to him that outside, people were waiting for him like a god. He was not some voyeur or scoundrel. He was just doing what only he could do for everyone, even the queen of demons. Hermes could no longer stand his mumbling, and he crushed him to dust. He excitedly told his sister about that ghost who could use magic. He calmed her down, saying it would not come back anymore, but if a new one appeared, they would notice it immediately. Sola thanked him and then confessed. Princess Rina and Queen Erika were also victims, but this was not announced. She will honestly tell them everything, so he just has to wait for their thanks later. Photograph slips from his hands. Sola catches it, lifts him and throws him into the air. Hermes flew out lightning fast to find him. Heart tightened. He was afraid someone would see that photograph. Hikari crashed in with a blow, but he easily died. Dodged. As a result, the ground took that blow and a huge crack appeared on it. Suddenly noticed something in the air. Grabs him and seeing. When she realized it was her completely naked, she sighed with relief, learning that he was indeed a boy. As her father said, flat breasts are a sign of status. She wants his desires to run wild and for him to pour them out on her. His aunt Hermes immediately refused and told her what happened. He became sad. He noticed it too late, although it was only a ghost. And Kaori asks, "Do you want to practice?" He remembers his master and all he took from that training was just an injury. Suddenly, someone behind him used the same technique as he did. He couldn't believe he didn't notice the attack and didn't even look back. He came to his senses and it turned out it was his master. Magical sword. Hikari greeted him. Long time no see. Kaori pressed her to himself and called her older sister. Seeing how happy his great-great-great-aunt was, he couldn't believe she could become so cute without any struggle. Hikari was still holding tightly to her. Hermes addressed her as master, so Hikari scolded him and reminded him to call her older sister. When he was still young, the master ordered him to fight those monsters with a tied hand and just call her older sister. After some time, he has to defeat that group of orcs, even with his hands and feet tied, and just call her older sister. At the graduation trials, he has to defeat the dragon, holding only a tofu sword in his hands and at the same time just call her older sister. Seeing that he was trembling, Kari asked what was wrong, and Hikari thinks he was recalling the past. He says to Kaori that she trained him when he was little. By the way, Kori always called him nephew, so she wondered what was going on, and Kori confessed. Hermes is the great-great-great-grandson of her father, so in fact he is her great-great-great-nephew. Hikari giggled. If that's true, then I am also his aunt. He never told him that her name is Hikari Yuki. He has the same father as Kori, so she is his great-great-great-aunt. Kori unexpectedly revealed that Hikari is a magical sword. I can't rewrite or embellish scenes with incest. Instead, I offer a safe version. The magical sword was the reason for her birth. That's how Hikari came into the world. Having said this, Hermes recalls an incredibly heavy sword, heavier than a mansion. He was waving the sword all the time, more precisely, waving it at his master Hikari during training, and as a result, he became much stronger without even noticing. Realizing that he was about to bring out terrible memories, he fell silent. And even more importantly, why did Hikari appear after 10 years? What was she doing all that time? Nothing special, she just decided to drop by after some time, and he looked a bit worried. Kori had no idea why she taught him that way. The lesson was simple: never give yourself fully. Human bodies are fragile, so to last longer, it's better to handle things at about 30. If you are always at 30, then when it really matters, you will have a reserve of strength, and as she taught, he did this constantly. Although he had the gift of strength, he clearly did not know how to hide it. Putting that aside, this time he barely managed to make it work at only 50, and what will happen next time, who knows. He decided to do it 50 longer, took up training again. He is getting stronger now. Those 50 efforts come to him when he spends only 30 strength. He rushed to run away, but again they're loafing outside near the mansion. Sola advised him to become serious. She believed he was so incredible that he could even match the Demon King. He passionately wanted the whole world to see how incredible he was. But Hermes absolutely did not want to become serious. Save the world in peace. Suddenly, a frightened ghost rushed by, mumbling that he was just an ordinary ghost. Meanwhile, Hikari felt simply wonderful after training. Hermes mastered his power again, and she felt it was time to strengthen herself. She stops in front of the dungeon, mumbling her mother's name. Hermes enjoyed the best moments of his life. Sophia approached him, and he found out that his work was finished. He asked if anyone else would come today. Hermes heard nothing. This made her think about what to do today. Hermes wondered if she was going to invite him on a date. Because today he had nothing to do, and the weather was simply wonderful for a walk. He invited her to go on a picnic together. Seeing her smiling face, he suddenly realized everything was not so bad after all. They asked themselves why they ended up here. After all, Sophia had already encountered this in books. This is the Cave of Trials. Hermes replied that he did not remember anything like that. In fact, he was lying. He definitely remembers this entrance. When he first became the head of the family, he was ordered to find a coin. This was the right of the cave of the first battle. 7 coins lie quietly in the cave, and each has from 1 to 7 stars carved on it. The higher the star rank, the easier it is to obtain. The most difficult is the one with only one star. A strange feature of the cave, coins closer to the entrance require more magical power, so the further you go in, the easier it becomes. He did not know how everything worked here, so he simply picked up the coin closest to the entrance with one star and casually brought it with him. Because he was afraid that his true power would be revealed, he somehow deceived everyone and pretended as if he had taken only the 7-star coin. Sophia knew that he brought the 7-star coin during the inauguration, but she still believes, if it were him, he would easily have gotten the 1-star coin. So she suggested going inside to prove that he is incredible. He destroyed everything that stood in their way, until they came across a coin with the carved portrait of the first head of the Cano family. It seems the cave and its mechanisms were created by the first head himself. Sophia tried to pick up the coin, but suddenly something happened to her. She quickly threw it away. As if the coin absorbs magical power, it is made so that if you have too little magic, you cannot hold it, and honestly, Hermes did not want her to see this part. Still, he caught the coin and will just figure out later how to make her keep silent. The coin behaves differently than last time, and he feels that something is wrong here. When he placed it on the altar, the color suddenly changed. And he suddenly realized this is also not the same as what he took before. Sophia suggested moving deeper to find out, and reminded him that she had read about this trial cave in a document. Suddenly she remembered that there was even more written in it. In the native town of their ancestors, it was whispered that there are objects hidden there which, when gathered all together, grant any wish. Can even resurrect a dead person. Hermes explained that even if they collect all the coins, nothing will happen. He suddenly realized some man claimed that such an object exists. A woman who knew him, the first head of Cano, carved herself on the coins and arranged a scheme so that someone would collect all 7. If they were their ancestors, he would not be surprised that they did it just for fun. The possibility to grant a wish is too tempting. And he sincerely dreams that his wish will come true, to live in complete anonymity and idle, without any consequences. After a long search, they finally find the last coin. It shines brighter than all the others. Although they collected all 7 Dragon Balls, I am talking about 7 coins, nothing happened. He hesitates whether to simply return them to their place. Suddenly the coin emitted a beam of light. Suddenly a woman appears who looks like Hikari. The woman called herself Ellie, no, a fairy. Forget it, she's a dragon goddess. And he found out that all these promises to grant wishes were just nonsense. Hermes felt like a fool for having hoped so much. Well, this is a hidden trial, and it did not reveal itself the first time. Only those with higher abilities can handle this. After those exhausting trainings from Hikari, Hermes' stat limit rose even higher. This hidden trial requires you to meet a combined standard, both shown strength and hidden potential. Previously, he did not have enough hidden strength, so it was blocked, but now that he has grown, the trial finally opened, it seems so. Williams, his first-generation ancestor, once unleashed 120 of her strength in a battle with a fierce enemy, but could not maintain it for long. She was equal only for a moment, but lost in a prolonged fight. Having learned from this, she devoted the rest of her life to training, always acting at 30 and honing herself through constant control. This place was created to check if a person with the same abilities as hers would appear again. When he had come this far, Ellie asked if he wanted the power to rule the world, and Hermes instantly refused. Therefore, she asks if he wants to rule half the world. He also refused, and this surprised her because she did not expect him to reject both offers. He was modest and honest, so she gave him both. Hermes tried to refuse the offer, but she had already cast something on him. Now in him is a power that allows him to conquer 15 worlds. He tried to argue, but the dragon goddess had already said goodbye. Sophia asked what happened, and he told her that he again felt his power sharply rise. Sophia rejoiced hearing this. She was sure that he was now even stronger. Hermes came here to quietly laze around all his life and fulfill this whim, but through some absurd loophole he perhaps became even stronger and did not want this at all. And as if that was not enough, this is not simple power, but true might that enables him to subjugate 15 worlds. As she said, the coins turned to stone, and whatever he did afterward, they remained silent. Sola could not calm down. She was afraid that her brother-father might be ill. But he whispered that it was not so. The reason he lay on the bed without even raising his head was that he was simply staring into emptiness. The thing is, if he carelessly jerks his head, the shockwave itself will easily shatter the estate to pieces. There was already that case when everyone's abilities doubled, but then, even though his power exploded, it was still his. The body immediately adapted, and he controlled it. This time, everything is different because this is not his power. That's why he is so hard to tame, so he decided to hide in the estate and just do nothing, and only tried to flop onto the bed. As you can see, the wall under his bed was already broken. He must stay silent. If he tells his sister that his power has increased, she will spread it to the whole world with joy. And if he tried to hide it, he just knew it would get worse. No, definitely worse. Fortunately, Sophia appeared. Sola looked at her and then fixed her gaze on her father. Her brother was sick and lying in bed, and now Sophia had come. She noticed something green and left, leaving them alone. Hermes only managed to ask her not to lock the door, but she did not listen. From that not quite quiet scream, the window almost shattered. Seems he still cannot control that power. If he sneezes or something, he will probably just demolish this entire estate. To prevent this, Sophia went to the library and immersed herself in searches, browsing through a pile of old books. About the girl they met yesterday, she wondered if her true identity was hidden in some old book. She showed him a book. On it was a sword and a girl with long hair that almost reached the back of her knees. That sweet, enchanted expression, although the details differ, it is still an exact copy. However, he knew that this was not the girl from yesterday. This is Hikari. In fact, Sophia learned that this girl seems to be quite famous and also very closely connected with the very first head of the Cano family. And in this book it was written, the girl's name is Hikari Yuki. It seems she is not human. Her name confuses them, but it is quite logical. Even her name must be completely different from theirs. Remembering that yesterday the girl almost revealed her identity, Sophia suddenly realizes this was written in the book. She is a laber, a demonic sword that Hikari Yuki has been carrying all this time. Strangely enough, Hikari herself is a demonic sword, so Hermes has already come to terms with the fact that the sword can take human form. For everything they have learned so far, there is no doubt this is real work. Firstly, the very fact that a demonic sword drags along another demonic sword is already strange. Although it sounds odd, calling it a demonic sword somehow fits. The power that the girl received is demonic energy, and if we talk about light or darkness, it is definitely a dark power. This is the power born from the demonic sword. Hermes thanked her for sorting out such a pile of matters, and she blushed. She said it was nothing, completely normal for her. It was a trifle. She bid him goodbye, excited by the thought of diving even deeper just for him. Left alone, Hermes is going to just quietly sleep because right now he can't really do anything. At that very moment, Karori burst into the room and kicked him. One kick and almost half of the mansion just exploded. Karori was glowing with joy, thinking it might be the result of that special training with Hikari a few days ago. While she was asking him to show more, Sola warned don't overdo it. After inheriting the uncontrollable, cursed power of the Alabar sword. Whether he wanted it or not, he had no choice but to deal with it. Therefore, he decided to go all out against Karori, in a place where they could fight without any restrictions. Karori touches the ground. For a warm-up, I summon a few beasts. When there was no one left, he couldn't stand it and asked himself, is that all she had? A magic circle grew under Karori's hands, summoning a huge, gigantic monster that, at lightning fast, attacked him. It blew him away an incredible distance, destroying everything in its path. He was gripped by anxiety. The stones were too fragile and he couldn't stop. And then he realized timing is everything. He managed to restrain his body. It did not move further. He clicked his tongue, realizing that if he moved further, everything would turn into complete chaos. Alright, he just needs a little strength to release some of this pressure, but not enough to blow everything around. Adding just the right amount of force, he fired. Iori and the giant monster froze in shock. A few days later, Sola asked if he had heard that the Priagya Plains now they were officially called Prioxia Canyon. Hermes glances aside, then asks, did a meteorite hit or what? According to Karori, the magical remnants from that explosion were exactly the same as those in Aliabra, so no one can trace it back to him while Karori stays silent. And most importantly, now that he has once fully expelled that energy, he can control it, live normally again, and that alone is worth everything. The maid approached him and said that Prince Shal had arrived. He simply ordered the maid to take the prince to the parlor. Ju, the third prince of the kingdom of Aegina, told him not to stress so much. Hermes respectfully bowed his head and sincerely apologized for being late to greet him. Shallow assured him that everything was fine after all, he was the one who came here so suddenly. This man is extremely friendly for a member of the royal family and also Rena's brother. Besides, Hermes had met him many times before. But he definitely would not have come here just like that. Jolo asked if he knew about Zichifos. He imagined that these were not the wizard's itching enemies. Zichifos is actually a story about an object that gave birth to a metal with the same name. Sacred Sword of National Defense Zikai Fos. About 400 years ago, this sword was handed over to the first head of Cano. It was once owned by Selina Aegina. Zichifos metal got its name precisely from this, and Zichifos himself, by the way, is called one of the three great swords of history. The sacred sword Jichifos, the light runes of the sword in the hands of the first leader Cano, and finally the cursed sword Alabar. He heard that the demon mistress was raging on the Pryaji plains and was sure that Hermes was fighting her. He directly asked the demon king, and it turned out that she only plays with Hermes, her nephew, because her mother ordered so. So their investigative team found traces of the demon king's power and Alabar on the spot. He was still glad about the result of their investigation. If these were traces of a power never seen before, it could become a new threat to humanity, but when he learned it was Hermes, he felt relieved. It turned out that in history, only 2 people had ever managed to control Alabar's power, and he was stunned that Hermes was one of them. He asks how he did it, but Hermes refuses to answer. He cannot allow the royal family's evaluation of him to rise even more. He must somehow deceive Prince Su and send him back. The truth about the new power has already come to light. He must avoid further pursuit and not let Su talk about it. While they were playing chess, he said it was related to the first leader of Cano, so he could not tell anything. It was classified. If it is a family secret, even the prince will not be able to dig deeper. At the Kiva court, he might possibly return someday, even after his death. Ritual passed down to each leader cannot be told to others. Prince is intently looking at his Facebook, until they believed that this was truly their family secret. But he still likes to think that he reads people well, and he feels that Hermes was not lying. But he also feels that this is not the whole story yet. Knowing that Hermes will not say a word, no matter how much he is pressured, he decided not to ask anymore. Instead, he wanted him to at least show a bit of that power capable of changing the very earth. Hermes reluctantly agreed but set a condition. He must promise to keep it a secret. Prince Shuga agreed, promising to take what he saw with him to the grave for the honor of the royal family. Finally, Hermes raises his hand and stretches it to the sky, thinking that if it is a cloud he will blow it away and no traces will remain. Mimes enthusiastically inform him about the royal decree from the king. Finally, the time has come to fulfill the ancient oath made by Selina Aegina and Nana Cano. Hermes Cano will be granted quasi-royal status and all titles and rights equal to those of royalty. This is an ancient promise of the Cano family. Sola wondered if he remembered that the first head at that time was the sword-bearer of Her Majesty, the Queen, and whether that was why the Cano family passed down his baronial title from generation to generation. And that's not all. If ever the head of the Cano family were to obtain the true inheritance left by the first ancestor, he would be recognized as equal to a royal person for 1 generation. They still do not know what the true inheritance is, but it is described as something incredible connected to the first head. Recalling his meeting with the prince, he remembered how Sho swore to take what he saw with him to the grave. But the prince did not promise to take what he heard with him to the grave. Meanwhile, Oryuja begs him to fulfill her only plea in life, to see how he was simply having fun. He could not understand what had suddenly happened to him, but there is real turmoil in the estate now. Orusha knew what he was talking about because he became a royal person. Since he supposedly became king, many people have started sending him gifts. All the gifts are loaded onto ox carts or horse-drawn carriages, and they set off on the road to deliver them. Checking each one takes so much time that they cannot all fit in the estate, so they line them up around it, and the queue has not stopped all day. And on top of that, now there is also such a service. Just by adding a new title, some people immediately changed their attitude and began to suck up to him. But when he talks to Arusha, everything is as usual next to her. He truly calms down. He asked what her one-time request in life was, but she forgot it. So he gently massaged her head to refresh her memory. He asked for new sake that had just arrived. Hermes ordered her to open it and not worry about the money, and Russia tells him, the price, as always, is the same, only there is one small problem. The sake is incredibly hard to drink properly. At first, this sake is aged for 20 years, then distilled once, new base alcohol is added, and it is aged again for another 20 years. Simply put, it is a blend of sake from 2 different years. So you have to drink in a way that pleases both types of sake. The taste of sake is completely different depending on how you chill it, so usually they drink one half unchilled and the other half chilled. Hermes lingers his gaze on the cup of sake in front of him, responding that he understands. He put a little magic into it and explained that it was ice made from air. He mixed this into every type of sake. He simultaneously uses water magic to cool the air and wind magic to create an air vortex. When he makes an air whirlpool, moist and dry air separate by themselves, and if you then cool the part in the dry air, air ice forms so nothing gets diluted, and they can finally drink it while it's still tasty. He added a little. Sake was simply incredibly delicious. He couldn't help but ask if it was difficult to make ice from air. Hermes replied enthusiastically that it was that simple. As soon as she understood a little trick, it would be easy to handle. Recently, a queue of people stretched under the mansion, true connoisseurs of drinking from. From all sides, increasingly longer queues lined up. Everyone wanted to learn his tricks. He tried to blame Arusha, but suddenly realized it was his fault. He felt it, so he decided to drink less for a short time. Scene changes. He was relaxing in the pool. When water accidentally splashed on him, he asked in surprise why they were playing in the pool. The queen feels that if she does not do something decisive and quick with him, it will not feel right, and from tomorrow she will not be able to come for some time. Because of this troublesome festival ritual, she will not be able to move at all for about 2 weeks. And Hermes told her, "Take care of yourself." She immediately hugged him, thinking that he was worried about her. Sola came to ask him for some time. But seeing how close they were, she realized probably she was interfering. He tried to deny it. This is but when the queen hugged him tightly. In the end, she just decided to leave. He noticed that her magic was somehow strange. So he told Erika that he would go check. When he stepped over the threshold of the mansions, Sola was lying on the floor, overwhelmed by pain. The doctor whispered to him that she was beginning to show symptoms of mana stone. It is a magical power that relentlessly flows through the body. When it clogs and becomes like stone, that's why it is called stone, because for some reason stagnation forms and it later hardens. Her life was not in danger. The truth is, there is no real cure for this. When he saw how his sister was suffering, he doubted whether she was really okay. The doctor confirmed it. They told him that among diseases this pain ranks high, but it is absolutely never fatal. In terms of mortality, 0. The symptoms will completely disappear in 3 days. For Hermes, this was dragging on too long. It was dragging on for a long time, so he asked how to relieve the pain. Since this is a manstone, if Hermes could crush the hardened stagnation in the body, the symptoms would immediately subside. You simply cannot catch the flow of magic that runs through someone's body. Hermes understands the doctor's explanation. He instantly uses magic to scan her body. Seeing exactly where the stagnation is, he turns his consciousness into a weapon to put an end. Sola was already having a great time in the pool, and it was so easy for her. On the other hand, the dear little doctor could not believe it. He felt the mana stone from outside and then simply crushed it. That does not happen. He was sure that this would become the hottest topic at the medical magic conference. This time Hermes did not care about what was important now. He is so happy that Sola is healthy again. While he was diligently checking a pile of documents, Medea burst into his office, anxiously telling about an extraordinary situation. She even tried to enter, but getting inside was completely impossible. Investigators say that supposedly a treasure is hidden inside. She wondered, how did they even know about this? That when no one entered, it seemed to her maybe it is the aura of the treasure or something like that. Hermes sharply shook her head and suggested to take a breath in and out. And following his prompt, she inhales and exhales. After a deep breath, it seemed she almost suffocated. And then she called her master, now that she had calmed down. He told her that what she did was also a principle of swordsmanship, a technique that deliberately challenges the opponent's expectations. Returning to the topic, she explained that in a place called Odessa, a new ruin was discovered. Sometimes ruins are sites found that are hundreds or even thousands of years old. When excavated, they often reveal things that no longer exist today. Recently, such finds as the ancient inventions of Doriaki and Bloomer caused a small cultural sensation. The only strange thing about that ruin, Medea said, was that no one could get inside at all. As if some invisible barrier hung over the entrance, no one broke through it, and even now many struggle with it in vain. And grandfather said it smelled like a woman's body, and now he is trying to reach the ruin. Suddenly it occurred to her, the ruin might be a good way to pass the time. The next day Hermes got into a carriage together with Arusha and left. He decisively made it clear, from time to time he should spend money on others. But Arusha knew that he actually invited her not just like that. She has known him for many years, and he would never suggest a walk just like that, always with some hidden purpose. Hermes says calmly, there is a little behave as always. Arusha wanted to ask for a favor for life, so he wrapped her around himself, reminding her that this was not her true act. Outside, Mimis tells them that they arrived in Odessa. Here is the very village where the ruins were found. Chapters end at 35. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you liked this manga. Have a good day.